Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out tonight. Like, I just want to start off by saying, repeating what he said, that this turnout is amazing for me to see. I'm from Montgomery County originally. We have, I think we're the biggest county in the entire district, and we don't have this many people turn out on a regular basis. So that Lee County came out like this is really amazing. You should be all proud of what you've done, because if 2018 is going to be the start, I hope 2018 is the start of something really, really good. Because right now we're in the middle of some tough times as Democrats and as Americans generally. And that's across the board. We all know why people voted for Trump, why people vote Republican, and the issues the conflicts that bring them to that decision. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm born and raised in Blacksburg, Virginia, at near the eastern side of this district. My parents were both Hokies. I went to Virginia Tech and met there in the state. And so that was my home. I was raised around football games and basketball games and all that good stuff. I grew up right when Michael Vick was there, and so I still have that in my memory. But that didn't end so well, unfortunately. But anyway, so I was always a political kind of guy. I liked it when I was a kid. So when I went off to college, I went up to Washington, D.C. to study there, because I just want to be around it, see what it's like, and see if I like it. And actually try to learn firsthand, just me and other people, about how politics actually works. So it's one thing to study it and read the books, and you have all these theories and stuff that they teach, and that's fine, but it doesn't really apply to how it actually works, especially now. Okay, this is a totally unclaimed territory of politics we're in now. So I wanted to learn firsthand how that works. So I went and I worked in the legislative branch. I worked for a senator named Al Franken, who's recently gone, and I also worked for an executive branch in the Obama administration. That was a brand new agency that was re-regulating banks and financial companies and credit card companies to protect consumers. Looks like we have one fan in here. It's called the Consumer Protection Bureau. Some people know it as Elizabeth Warren's sort of project. And as a senator, she's been helpful in defending it. As we know now, the Republicans are always they were after it from day one. And I was a staffer there when this awful man named Mick Mulvaney would sit across the dais and yell at us and say, "Why do you have interns? Do you pay your interns? What are you doing? This is big government, blah, blah, blah." And unfortunately, that man is now the budget director for Mr. Trump. So that is it's hard for me to see his face on television, because I used to see it across the, like this sort of thing. But I decided after 2016 that I'd had enough time in Washington. I was always, when I was there, I wanted to learn, and I felt like I had sort of gotten that. I learned a lot just from all the people that I interacted with all the time. I mean, all my friends were political people too. So I was really in it for that time. I said, I need a break. I'm going to come home and think about what's coming down the road, what's going to happen in 2018. And so after seeing, Mr. Trump about 30 seconds into his administration, I said, yeah, I think I'm going to try and run in 2018. I think this is the time for a new generation, a new effort, some new blood. I mean, that's what we need basically everywhere, is new blood into this political system to try and make some difference. Because I'm telling you, the people who I work with, some of them good, some of them bad, regardless, they're all part of that system. And they think as part of that system. And the ideas that are acceptable to talk about in Washington are very, very narrow. I mean, what people talk about out here, the concerns that people have in the real world, are maybe 10% of what's ever discussed out there. And so people say, DC's a bubble, and that's absolutely true, but it's not just a soap bubble. It is a glass bubble. And you can knock on that bubble all day and they won't, and it doesn't make much of a difference. Because the people who are in there know they don't care. They don't need to listen, because, hey, they'll get reelected. They have all the money on their side. The lobbyists talk to them every day and say, well, we'll support you. We'll get you back in. Don't worry. And I saw, I used to see that firsthand. And the only way to make this system better, I don't care who you are, Republican, Democrat, you have to replace the people who are there now. You can put pressure, you can call, you can write letters, you can show up with signs, and people have done that, and that's good. That's part of it. But with guys, especially guys like Morgan, that doesn't work. He doesn't respond to pressure. So when you have people like that, the only solution is to get him out. He was an attorney, we can send him back. He was a private attorney, and we can send him back. What's that? Morgan Grissom, Joe, no.
We've never seen him.
Yeah, Morgan, who his name is actually Howard. That's Howard Morgan. I don't know why he does that. But yeah, Morgan, who I knew who he was just because Roanoke Times, he was the delegate from Salem, so we used to hear about him and how he was useless in the House of Delegates. They couldn't pass budgets and stuff when he was there. And then, 2010 comes, you got all that outside money, you got the anti-Obama sentiment, and he got in. So he had his chance. He got 3 terms to demonstrate what he cares about, what he knows about, what he can do, and it ain't much. He's not a policy wonk. He's not a public servant in any way. He's an ideologue. He's a creature of that machine, that Republican money party machine, and that's why he's there, and that's what he's going to do. 365. He doesn't give a damn what people ask him to do on their behalf. So guys like that, you just got to get rid of, and that's why I decided to run, because I can't stand that. I saw it in person, and I thought, the whole time I was there, this is a damn shame that Southwest Virginia, my home, the people I love, and these mountains are just so beautiful, so much potential, that we're represented by something like that. Because Southwest Virginia, I think more than other parts of the country, doesn't just need an average congressman. They need someone who can hit the ground day one, who knows how the system works, knows the people, knows how the policy and the laws, to actually be a above average representative, because that's what Southwest Virginia needs. We need federal investment in infrastructure in our schools, in the healthcare systems, which are being abandoned by this global economy, and there is just no understanding. It's hard to overestimate this, of what people face out here in Lee County. And really, we're not that far from DC physically compared to California or Idaho or something, but it might as well be a different planet, how they live up there. I mean, Arlington County, still in the same state, is one of the wealthiest counties in the world, not just in the state, but in the world. And you go down Southwest Virginia, and that's obviously not the case. That disparity to me is just unacceptable. There's no difference. I mean, to be fair, to be honest, I like the people around here a lot better. They're a lot more honest, have a lot more integrity. No offense to Josh, but there's too many lawyers up there. It's like, you got like 10 lawyers per 1,000 or something. It's nuts. So that's why I decided to run 2018. I think I have a lot of good ideas. I think I've trained myself in Washington, have the experience and a realistic understanding of how all this nastiness works, to try and be a really good, effective representative for these people who I grew up with, and just absolutely love. This culture is so hardworking, so many honest people, and just very American here. I just, I never cease to be amazed how beautiful it is every time I drive through here, and I think, man, what can we do to make it easier for people to come here and travel, vacation, go in these mountains, go fishing, hunting, whatever. So I think that's where a lot of the potential is, and that's something I'd like to work on when I'm in Congress. But that's all I'm going to say, and I'll just open it up to everyone's questions. That's what I like to do. So go ahead.
Has Griffith really moved into the 9th district here?
Yeah, well, what he did was, I don't know if people know the story, but he got his buddies in the House of Delegates after he got elected to change the line so it goes right around Salem. So now he's in the district. Not because he moved, but the line moved, right? So he could have, they could have expanded it into Roanoke or something, but they didn't do that. They put his house in there, so he didn't have to move. And, I did the math one time, and to drive from Salem to Washington is actually 5 minutes shorter than to drive from Salem to Jonesville. So he actually lives closer to DC than he does here. And that sort of says a lot about where his mind is too, I think.
Well, when he ran the last election, he made the statement that his focus was on DC.
Yeah, he said, I'm not here to work for you, right? He said, I work in Washington.
But the focus needs to be on people
Right.
in this area, in this district.
Yeah.
You represent.
Right, and that's what I think I would do. I mean, because I'm from here. He's not even from here. He's, from outside. And he came in, I don't think he, in his mind, that his job is represent people who live here. It's, the party told him to run. Some people with money said, Morgan, 2010, this is your time, go for it. And that's who he works for, and that's who he serves. And we see it how the way he votes. I always bring up, he voted, he was one of about 80 Republicans that voted against the Puerto Rico relief bill for that hurricane. He voted no. Right after he voted for $800 billion military budget, he says we can't afford to help out our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico. And a lot of Republicans voted for it, and he was one that did. That just shows you sort of where his priorities are. That Freedom Caucus, yeah, they're just troublemakers. Yeah. And we're not, Southwest Virginia is, it's certainly more conservative than other parts of the state, but we're not Tea Party here. No. He is not a fit for us, and he is not well regarded or respected in Congress. He's sometimes you say they're either a politicians are either show horse or workhorse, and he's neither, so.
He's an ass.
Well, you-
And personally, he's very rude, he's rude to people, you know, even if you disagree, you should try to be nice, and he doesn't try that, so.
Well, I think that's one of the problems too, is that a lot of times people in a district don't know how they're voting.
Yeah,
They don't know the things they're voting against, what they're voting for. I mean, I want somebody up there that's working for
Right,
me.
right.
That's working for this area.
Yeah.
And I know that he's not.
yeah, and so that's one part of it, is you have to look at some of his vote, I mean, really, really bad vote. I mean, he's one of the guys that won't vote for budgets, won't vote to increase debt ceiling, will vote for shutdowns and things like that, because that's what he wants. He wants it to break down. He likes that chaos, because that's where his, you know, his crazy ideas can spread out. His whole anti-government, hate the government thing, that's how it works. So there's how the votes, and then what they actually are doing. They're on committees, they can go to the floor and give speeches and at least talk about Southwest Virginia, so it's in people's minds. He doesn't even do that. That's the easy part. Show up at the committees, you give a statement, you leave, but he don't even do that. So,
Well,
you know, we deserve so much better.
Just excuse me for
No, no, no,
interrupting
go ahead.
again, I'm very vocal, as I
That's
told you
good.
earlier, sitting here in the audience. But you don't see CNN or Fox or MSNBC trying to run Morgan Griffin down to interview him.
No.
They don't care what he's got.
I think he went on MSNBC once about 6 months ago, and he made a total doofus of himself. He didn't even know the bill he was voting on, and they asked him, and he's, I don't know.
Well, they don't work enough days to do it.
Yeah, well, no.
When they work 110 days out of the year.
Well, yeah, well, those other days, they're supposed to be down in the district meeting people, and he doesn't do that, so I don't know what he's doing all those other days. Somebody should try to follow him or something. I don't know.
Hey, he was in the parade a couple of years ago.
Okay, oh, he just.
I didn't see him because I turned my back to him so I couldn't look at him.
He's in the tobacco festival spring.
Justin, I
Okay.
think that's one thing, and when I think of Morgan Griffin, and it seems to work a lot with people that I'm kind of worried how they'll vote, is please, when you think of Lee County, remember, we lost our hospital.
Yeah,
Yes.
and what did he
And
do?
and I was gonna say, those of us that have been at hospital authorities for 4+ years, never saw him step up to help. So many people who are pretty apolitical told me, Rick Boucher would have
Oh.
never let that hospital.
No,
run.
he sure
So
wouldn't.
that's something, whoever runs against him in Lee County,
Yeah.
make sure that's an issue.
Yeah. Well, and you know why he won't do that? Because that would show that government can help people. And he doesn't want that. He doesn't want people to even think that, because then his whole Tea Party thing is out the window. So he goes there with that ideology, and then he goes there to prove it. And that's not original. I don't want to even give him credit for that. There's plenty of people that, like Mulvaney, that are there for that purpose.
And building off of what she said. Pretty much howdy doody in the city, that's what happened.
Yeah,
Howdy doody.
and I don't even know really what his voice sounds like, because he just doesn't, you don't hear him. There's always, you know, the local stations always love to have people come and talk, you know, just doesn't do it, so.
Well, he didn't promise us anything, and he's not gave us anything,
Right.
so you really can't say.
Yeah, what does that say?
I mean, you know, he's not did
No, you can't
anything.
blame him, it's the
You know,
people's fault.
exactly.
Well, I don't know how many
They just
people,
those damn Republicans, that's all to it.
He's got this newsletter, email newsletter, I don't know if people get it, but it is the strangest thing in the world. He talks about, it's like a fiction novel sometimes, he just writes the oddest things, nothing to do with the news or anything.
Have you seen a copy of the letter that he sent out to his governors asking for?
Where he says that we're all communists or
Sharks.
something.
He referred to us as sharks.
Sharks, oh yeah, that's right, I saw that. He says, I got a bunch of lefty socialists running against me, please give me money or something.
Building off
That's
of
a
what she
technique.
said, I, have, I did a lot of canvassing for Alicia Callen's campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that we really found was that healthcare strikes a
Yep,
lot of
yep.
people here, because we are the people who suffer the
Right.
most from the lack of expanded Medicaid. And that, is probably the biggest, I guess, crime against this
Yeah.
area was the lack of expansion of
Right.
Medicaid. And, not only the loss of the hospital, but people who just live day in and day out without insurance and spend, their days at the emergency room and just hope
Yeah.
they don't get that bill next
Yeah.
week. And that's just something that,
But the Republicans say, oh, that's healthcare, when you go to the emergency room, see, they get healthcare.
The thing about it, those people complain about it, they go out and vote Republican.
That's exactly
Right, well, so it's our job to be really fearless about the alternatives that we put out there. we're not gonna be called names, we're not gonna be afraid and try to, oh, no. Okay, so when it comes to healthcare, I have my number one thing. If I do one thing in Congress ever, it would be to write and hopefully vote for a Medicare expansion bill. Because this healthcare problem that we have is not some like natural, super complicated issue that we don't know how to solve. It's a political problem because we have chosen not to expand Medicare and just provide that to people who need it. Now, thankfully, we had LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, back in '65, and a lot of good Democrats, including our own Pat Jennings. By the way, I like to brag about that. He was the only Democrat, Senate or House from Virginia, that voted for Medicare and the Voting Rights Act from Southwest Virginia. I believe. So that's just like, what's that?
My hometown.
Oh, yeah. So that's, we need to follow in that legacy. That's the type of Democrat I think I'm in the vein of that type of guy. The Medicare system is, universal, it's nationwide, same in every state. Benefits are the same, the payments are the same. But because of compromises they had to make way back in '65, they had Vietnam War going on and all that. They said, the American Medical Association, Chamber of Commerce, these traditionally right-wing, hate to say it, groups said, this is socialized medicine, we don't want this. So they made a compromise and said, we'll just do Medicare for 65 and up, and we'll do Medicaid as a separate thing, and we'll give money to states to do it. So maybe that worked for a while, but what do states do with their Medicaid money now? Like we see, Virginia refused, by every single Republican in that house, in that state house, refused to expand Medicaid. And now just across the border in Kentucky, a state that did expand Medicaid at first, they had better Medicaid than we did, and now they're trying to put work requirements to just get Medicaid. Now if you're sick and you need Medicaid, I don't know how you're supposed to work. I don't know how you figure that one out for yourself. Yeah, so they had a Democrat, Steve Beshear, and now they have,
But there are places where there are just no jobs for those people and they can't go anyplace.
right, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy. And that's how medieval this party has become. They think, just for you to get Medicaid, which is not generous. I mean, the doctors a lot of times don't like it because it pays bad, it's slow to get the money out. And a lot of times the states just contract with private insurance to do it anyway. So it's really like the same thing. And then they don't want to take Medicaid patients because that doesn't pay them enough, as it is already. So, it's just I think that's a damn shame. And what I want to see is Medicaid and Medicare brought up to the same level. So the coverage is equal across the country. If you move across the border, you should not have to worry about healthcare changing. That's crazy. We want people to be able to move to where the jobs are or start a small business. This is the other thing. I wish the Democrats had said back in 2010 with Obamacare is having health care attached to work is the dumbest damn policy you could have because people are stuck in the job and they're afraid to leave it. Even if they have some idea about how to do process better, start their own business, they don't want to do it because it's too risky. That holds back business, holds back the economy, everything.
And what they don't understand, a lot of insurance companies that are self-insured, they control your health care.
Right, exactly.
They control your health care.
So that gives employers more power over the employees.
Yes, absolutely.
And so to break that would be a big change, but it's extremely important. I mean, one of my good friends, self-employed, entrepreneur, and for young people, man, I mean, we're really getting screwed with those. I mean, I'm glad we have those exchange Obamacare plans, but they are so expensive sometimes. Talking $300-400 a month premium for what? $8,000 deductible?
Mine's
Nothing.
$250 and my deductible $5,500.
Yeah. So that's basically disaster care.
I mean,
If you go to if you get, a serious issue, then it'll pay after the deductible.
because I'm afraid I'll get out and get hurt.
Right, exactly. And that's all it serves. It's not really to keep you healthy or get you the things you need. That's not what is there. And so the thing is, if you take the funding out of the question, we have in areas like this, it's changing even that, but we have the doctors and the facilities to take care of people. The question is the money. And that's what the federal government's role is to just connect those two things and make us a healthier country. People can't work if they're sick. Their productivity goes down. You get distracted, all these other things. And talk about family values. I mean, you hear from couples all the time, the biggest stress point in their marriage is damn insurance and the bills. Are we going to keep up with this? What if our kid's got to go to college? Well, we've been paying $300 a month in health insurance premium. Then you can't save. So this needs to happen fast, and it's the only way forward. By the way, the Republicans always say, I kept saying repeal and replace. When I worked on the Hill, we're gonna repeal and replace Obamacare. And we're like, okay, let's have a discussion. Where is your plan? What is the replace? What is the replace? They had none.
It's hard.
All they did was repeal. They just said, okay, no more yeah, it's hard. It's, right, it's hard work. We don't wanna do that. Because, so, they have nothing. There's nothing for them to offer. They will let things get worse and worse until people get mad enough to kick them the hell out.
With
So,
the ninth district, and especially Lee County, the whole narrative is why not us? You know, why don't we get these
Right.
things? Why, you know, we think, like you said, Kentucky was better than we are.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they expanded Medicaid. You know,
Right.
it is having some trouble right now, but, you know, a lot of these people are looking across the border, you know, a couple miles across the border, thinking, why not
Right, that's,
us?
you know, that
And-
mountain I can get it and this one I can't.
Yeah,
Like, that makes
absolutely.
no sense.
And then we look north and we see, you know, the bigger counties, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, and we have to think, why not us
Right.
most of the time?
Right, so, an idea I also had to get more doctors down here is that, right now the doctors, they take on a ton of debt to do this, it's super stressful. So, just set up an arrangement, and other countries have this, I didn't make it up, is the federal government agrees to pay their tuition for medical school and all that, and in exchange, they have to spend the first, of their first 10 years of practice, they have to spend 5 or 6 in a rural area. Okay, that's what they do in other countries, and that would be a great idea. I think it's a great trade-off, and the more that you get, you know, I think a lot of more white-collar people need to see the rural way of life, because that's one of the big divisions in our country right now, too. Just, people don't see other types of people, and that's why you just keep talking past each other, and you can't get anywhere, so.
To get the doctors here, we need a hospital.
Right, and so that would be, you know, if we could expand Medicare, you have more patients with that card in their hand that says, this system will pay for my care, then the hospital knows, okay, we have X amount of business, X amount of money coming in. And that would be a big support to that. And you know, more, just the clinics, the urgent cares that are popping up now, those are, I think, an interesting innovation. But again, you need the money, you need the patients, so. Any education questions? I can talk about, so Matthew and I, we went to high school together. We graduated, our senior year, our high school in Blacksburg collapsed. We had a lot of snow on the roof, the gym caved in. And so we saw crumbling infrastructure from like our end of high school. And of course, we saw the piece that Murdoch Times did just yesterday about struggling schools in Virginia. Well, all of them were in the 9th district, no surprise. Pulaski down here, Wise we've known about. They just closed the schools, keep consolidating because they can't afford to keep the lights on, right? That's because we still say federal government can't get involved in education. This is what people always say. So that means the states have to do it. Well, the states don't have money either now. The state and local, local governments can't do it. State governments can't do it. We've seen that. Whether it's K through 12, they can't do the money, and with college too, they've been pulling back how much they put towards tuition. So you got to borrow that money instead. People have to borrow it instead. So there needs to be more of that role. I'm thinking we could have a simple federal program again, $3,000 per student grant every year. But in exchange, you have to have more outside gym class type of thing, and we need to teach kids basic finance and economics. Because having worked in that agency, I know that there's so many tricks and scams. The list goes on and on. I was amazed when I got there. How are we gonna ever clean this up? The best way to do it is just prevent it from happening, so people know, you know, what an interest rate is and how to calculate basic stuff. So I think everyone should get that, and that would be, you know, exchange for that money. So.
I think too, when I was in high school, we took a civics class.
Yeah.
And you learned about government, and
Right.
they don't do that anymore.
Right, I was reading an article in the news today about that.
Yeah, and you could tell, our president never had one. Like,
He was very smart.
yeah, but he's still
Stable, yeah, stable. Very good grades, yeah. Anybody else?
One of the big ones here is, you know, that voucher done, that people needed was sewer and water. To places like Stickleyville, if it hadn't been for voucher, that'd never happened. Some of these programs, you know, that done Rose Hill, and this, that, and other. This guy up here at the courthouse one day, he was sitting behind me, he was bitching real big time about whether or not going to do so-and-so on this water and sewer. We're not gonna get it. You know, Griffith told him, no money, right? Wouldn't be no nothing.
No.
That's it, gone.
Yeah.
Don't even talk about it. So anyway, I turned around and said to him, you know, thank the people of Lee County because 72% or 80 or what it was voted Republican that year against Rick, you know, that's what happened. So anyway, you know, you don't need no water if you vote that way.
So, maybe they can drink Mountain Dew all day, I don't know, but, the reason for, and there's two, I mean, you got Morgan who doesn't care and won't do it, but also there is a big, because of people like him who have destroyed this process in Congress, and I, again, saw this, is that it used to be that they had appropriations bills every year that the committees got together and they worked on it. So guys like Rick could sit in a room and say, I want this for my, this town, this for that, and they would get that money back home. And that process is totally jammed up, and it hasn't really happened in like 10 years. I think that the Democrats in '09 were the last to actually pass every single appropriations bill. There's 12 of them that pass every year. And that was the last time it happened. Since then, they do what we had just today, which is continuing resolutions, which is just says, we're gonna do that same thing again, same thing again. So there's no time to actually put stuff in there. And that's how they do everything now. The entire federal budget is done in one block, one vote. That's, you know, you can't do anything that way. So even Paul Ryan can't get money for his district. I don't care about him, but even a guy with power can't get stuff done because of that. And they got rid of earmarks, which was, sounds maybe counterintuitive, but was a big, big mistake. Because that was how Rick, and guys like him would get money back for the district. And, you know, everybody looks at another state and says, that's waste, we don't need it. But that's a small price to pay for Congress actually working, in my opinion. You know, that's the way it worked for 200 years. So I'd like to see that happen eventually, but that's a small thing. So.
Justin, I have conversations with friends of mine all the time that are different party than I am. And I ask them constantly, like when Alicia ran against Terry Kilgore, I said, well, just name me 3 things that he's done for this district. Same thing with Morgan Griffith. I asked somebody the other day, I said, are you going to vote for Morgan Griffith this time? Because I know her politics. She said, probably. I said, why? Well, because he's a Republican. And
That's all
tell me one thing that he's done.
Right.
The district that we live in, there's people falling apart, there's no jobs here. I said, tell me one thing. Could not think of one thing.
Right.
They can't tell you what they've done, but they just say they're gonna vote for him.
Yeah.
That
It's
bar
a
is magical.
Well, they're so much more moral than us Democrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I mean, all these sort of other issues pop up and people just, they pull away and that's how they think about politics. But, you know, what I sometimes tell to folks like that is, you can believe whatever you want about abortion, marriage. I guarantee you not a single damn Republican cares about that. And nobody talks about that in DC when they're working. That I can guarantee you. They don't actually do anything. They know because of Roe v. Wade that the court decided and they can't do it without a constitutional amendment, which they're not going to do. So this is all just a pure politics distraction. They are not bringing that to DC in any way. So they're just fooling with you. It's okay if you care about that. That's your personal whatever. But if you vote on that basis, you're giving up a lot.
The majority of the Supreme Court, when that was passed, was Republican.
Yeah, and well, and the Republicans have controlled the Supreme Court like all my life, and they've never done anything about it. They don't really care.
It's, I can't even watch them anymore. I just quit. I can't read them. I'll read.
Anyone else? I want to keep you all day, so.
How do you feel about term limits?
I get that question a lot. I have 2 minds on it, really. One is that, you know, in the abstract, if you put term limits in like some number, you're basically saying that democracy doesn't work. Because if someone was bad, unpopular, they should be able to get kicked out. Like, you know, if everyone voted, if you had like 80, 90% turnout, you may not need it. But the Republicans have broken that down as well. It's harder to register, it's harder to, you don't know where to go, they cut all the funding for the polling locations, RID, gerrymandering. So it might be a good idea just to set that there and say, this is where we're gonna have to renew everybody. Because the process that we have now is not gonna work to do that. So we gotta think of something else. So it would probably take a constitutional amendment, I think, which is hard. It takes 2/3 of the states and then 2/3 of the chamber, and they're probably not gonna vote to cut their own time down, so.
The only way to get it out is, like you said, vote them out.
Right, and so.
Voting should not be so hard.
No, it should be on a weekend or a federal holiday, all this stuff, I mean,
Work on Tuesday.
right.
And,
Well, yeah,
you know,
most people work 9 to 5 and then they're tired, so it's like, but that's, again, it's not an accident. The Republicans realized a long time ago that people were changing and they were gonna lose support. So instead of trying to be more popular, they just said, oh, well, we're gonna change how the voting works, so it's harder for it to work. And that's how they think. That's what they operate. There are people who are paid a hell of a lot of money in Washington. That's all they do all day long, is think about these strategies to keep winning and winning. So the Democrats have to be on that level, not to cheat, but to be aggressive about what we want and not be, just, being medium or going to the middle, all this stuff. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked in 40 years. So we need young people in there who know what's going on
The
and cut through all that.
Republicans they are masters
Yep.
of manipulation and propaganda. They are good at it.
And Trump was the best. Trump had studied it for years and he said, I'm gonna go pure Fox News, and it worked.
Democrats are just too busy.
Yep.
They have no compassion.
That's what it's become. So it's hard. I'm not gonna pretend like it's I have all the answers and make it easy, but that's why it takes everybody and then your friends and then their friends, and that's how we build this out. The institutions like unions and stuff that used to be able to do that aren't as strong as we know. So this is the new, hopefully, way we do this, and that's why every ounce of energy that you put into this is really the most effective thing you can do for the country, really, is to direct it right into politics. You can do Facebook posts and all that, that's fine, but you gotta stick to the basics to actually get things changed, so. All right, that's enough for me, I guess, so I'll be around. I'll let you guys go. Thanks.